Hello, this is the Thursday session for the CIT 261 course. This is Dennis. We have Aaron, and we have Steve here. Looks like Steve just dropped off, but he should be right back. Our subjects for tonight, let's see, DOM manipulation using create element, append child, insert before, remove child, and CSS3 transition animation, animations in CSS, and triggering those with JavaScript. So, without further delay, let's first cover some of the DOM stuff. There's a good site called DOMtree. It has some super stuff that I didn't realize. I didn't realize that when we were typing code, well, first of all, everything in the DOM, the document object model, outlines all elements as nodes and all text as nodes. Yep, are you there? Okay. Okay. I'll tell you what I could do. I could make it bigger and zoom in. Is that better? Oh, okay. Awesome. All right, let's do that. Let me shrink that down. The link here, I'll go ahead and put into the chat here. There is the link, and it's very thorough. It's very detailed, and it is. I learned a lot, and it's interactive too. Here's the thing with the DOM. I'll zoom in here. Maybe you can see it with me. The document object model. There's an example here. The doc type. Everything, essentially every tag and every text element becomes nodes. The document object turns everything into nodes. Even the doc type is not an element, it's actually a node. It's one of the only things on the page that is actually a node and not an element. Basically, all elements are nodes and all text are nodes. And when we type our code, I didn't realize this until studying it this week, that when we push return to make our code look nice, how we've got HTML, and then we push enter and head is on a different line, and then we nest the title inside of the head. I didn't realize this, but it actually creates a return text node inside of the head statement. Every time we push return, it puts a return character in a text node. And so all these nodes are on the page. Clean HTML is... Yeah, every time in the document, the HTML document, every time we push enter to put, like here we have HTML, and then when we push enter to put head on the next line, it actually makes a text node right here inside a head. I can close these out, and in between head and body here, you'll see head and body. There's actually a text node with a return character. There's a node there for that. And if we scroll down right here, you'll see this does not have that. The HTML is inline, and there are no return character nodes. So just to be aware of that, these nodes are. Yeah, it does, and I don't know honestly with our processors if that even slows anything down whatsoever. This interaction here is really cool with the head elements. It shows how everything's nested, and to get further into it, the nodes are all in a tree basically. Everything is subject to the HTML or doc type. Everything's in that node. There's a couple of things about that I'll go into in a second, but there's a head and a body. Most of us do that. Here we see that there's another text node because between head and body we usually, if I were to erase that return character, that would disappear. But we have, we have all these nested or trees. The leaves are the very end, the text nodes, the very end of the tree. So basically we'd have head, just as you're familiar with. We've been seeing the DOM as soon as we learned HTML. We just didn't really kind of understand that the browser actually goes and creates a document object model every time these pages are submitted and loaded. They actually create, every element becomes a node, every text thing becomes a node, every line of text. And here you can see in the title, about Elks becomes a node. And so everything is either within or is next to, just like head and body, or is in line with or sibling, as they say, because they use the parent-child metaphor, if you will. HTML, everything is subject to that document. which is where it starts. And then we've got head and body. Head and body are they're parallel, they're siblings. If we were to traverse the DOM, as they say, if we were to walk the DOM, we would use head would be referred to as a child element of HTML, and vice versa. If we're in the head element and we say parent node, and you have to be careful with, there's two different tags. There's parent node and there's parent element. When we use parent element, we're referring to the element, because with these return characters can actually, see how there's a text node here? It can actually refer sometimes to nodes that we don't mean to. So my understanding in the reading here, actually from this page, is that when we refer to other elements in the DOM, parents and children, siblings especially, be sure to use the element, call it by element and not the node, because the node can get us in trouble if we're not sure what nodes exist on the page. These are mostly interactive. Let's see. So as far as okay. Well, essentially, the body and head here, all elements are nodes. So in HTML, a head element, a body element. Within the body, we have an ordered list element. Within that ordered list, we have list items, which are elements. Also, comment tags in our HTML, those are, and this is because basically so that way we can programmatically and dynamically traverse the content inside of the HTML pages. So when the pages load, basically what we're doing is we are creating an object, and that object gives all these tags their independent and individual values, so that way we can find them with JavaScript and then manipulate them, and which is what we're getting to next, because well, as we saw here in the plan, creating an element, appending a child, inserting before is for siblings, or removing a child. Well, obviously you can see here very easily that ordered list is a child of the body tag. So if we were to move that, we could remove the ordered list with that. Or if we're in the ordered list, and let's say we have a dynamic list items, like let's say links or products or something on a website, anything that's in that list, we can remove or append, or create and then append, which is the correct way to do it. We have to create it first and then we append it with JavaScript, and I'll show you that in a little bit. The comment tags are also nodes. We can traverse those if we desire. I didn't see anything as far as why we want to do that, but I'm sure there's reasons, and I'm sure there's practical ways in which we would want. Everything in the HTML is a node, but not everything is an element. The only thing that's not an element is the doc type. Yep, absolutely. That's right. Elements. If there are commands that essentially, well, let's see. I think they have a drawing right here. There we go. There's a document, and then there's a document element, which is HTML. That is, if you were to in JavaScript write document instead of print or alert or append child or whatever method we're going to call on the document, because essentially what we're doing is when we type that dot, we're calling a method. We're going to call a method after that. We're going to call some built-in function that is in the existing library, if you will, with JavaScript to operate on the original. So when we use something like document element, what we're saying is get the document element is HTML. The HTML tag. The HTML tag is that. Its parent is the DOM, the document itself, which is a node, but it's not an element. So we start off with doc type, and they avoid that in this tutorial for a reason. They say that that's basically it's a node, but it's not an element, and they just kind of said we'll leave it at that for now. But the document element is going to return is the HTML tag document.body if it's inside the body, and the reason is because if you put document.body inside the head tag, the body hasn't loaded yet, so it will give you an error. It'll say null. It'll give you a null value. If you put document.body in a script tag, in JavaScript tag, Let me ask you first, are you familiar with how to put JavaScript into the body of an HTML document? Okay. Okay. All right. Let me see. I have right here. I can probably zoom in just a little bit to make it easier. We have basically we just have a doc type. We have a head. There's nothing. I've got nothing in the head element in the body. All these are nodes. When we go to inspect, actually, well, if I was in the browser, I'll do that in a sec. But we have basically I've just got a style. We've got a paragraph. We've got an input with an event. This is how JavaScript is going to trigger animations and how we can insert things. It's basically, it captures the events, but it captures the events that are based on the DOM, where things are in the DOM. In this case, I'm using the this implicit operator to say this particular input. So I didn't have to traverse anything, it's built in. Just basically when somebody uses this input, like I'm just going to use this value and then add pixels on the end. And it looks like this basically over here on the right. If you see this green box, basically we're using an input box. It's a type number, so it's going to have a scrolling number here, and then we're going to step through in tens. So 10, 20, 30, 40. On change, so when this changes, which is the JavaScript event attribute listener, it's the attribute which is JavaScript. The on change event is an event. Basically what we're doing is we're taking box 1, which is the div here. It's empty to begin with, except for the CSS. We've styled it, and what we did is we made it wide 100 pixels and we made it height 100 pixels. If I were to refresh the page, it should go back to 100. Yep, it's 100 by 100. And then the background color is dad, which is green. Dad is green. Dad is like purple. But transition, with the transitions, we've got transitions, transforms, and animations. The transitions, this is the shorthand. These are 4 different transition tags put all into one. With the CSS, we can use the shorthand. What this is saying is we're going to take the width, obviously, and then the transition time, the length of time that the transition is going to take, we want it to transform in 1 second, which is we could do 1,000 milliseconds is the other time signature we can use is milliseconds. We're going to ease or ease in. We could ease in. That would be fine. By default, it is ease is the default transition. And 0 seconds, this is delay. We could give it we could be real technical, and we could go like 500 just for the sake of like visual stimulation. We go 500 milliseconds, which is a half a second, but we could go 50 milliseconds, so it has just this slight delay, like 350. That's like a third of a second. Let's do this. Let's do 333 milliseconds. So we'll save that, and then basically what happens is when this input box, when its status changes on change, we're going to call box 1. Because of the DOM, we're able to find box 1. This is ID'd as box 1, and so dot style, because we're using, this is JavaScript inside of this on change event. So what we're doing is we're saying box 1 style, and then we're going to actually do the width. We're going to change the width to this value, whatever value is in the input, and then add pixels on the end, because it's the HTML needs to know what unit. So we can actually, what I should do is comment that out, because that will change what we're doing here, and then I'll refresh that. Essentially, oh, that's because I was doing something with height too, but I didn't finish it. But okay, so 240, and you'll see how there's no smoothness to this. As soon as I change the pixels, it's going to jump right to that next size, the next width, whatever it is. And the reason is that's because that's the input going into the box, but there's no transition. If I take the transition and I can take well, actually I don't have to change any of that, truthfully. I think we should just be able to refresh and load that, and it should have an animation there, and you'll see that it's It's kind of slow, and it's got an ease in factor. It kind of eases into the transition, and there's a 1/3 of a second delay.